then I guess that we will call this April 14th, 2022 meeting of the Englewood Transportation Advisory Committee to order. And the first thing on our agenda is recognition of public comment. Is there anybody here tonight to give public comment? Seems like a no. And I feel like I maybe I've skipped a step as part of the call to order. Do we do a roll check? Yeah, right. Okay. So Michelle, if that's you, could you do that?
Yes. Chair Knaddison.
Here.
Vice Chair Lewis.
Here.
Member Diedrich.
Here.
Member Sarno.
Here.
Member Whitney. And alternate member Heller.
Here.
Right, you have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Alrighty, so the next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the March 10th, 2022 meeting. If folks want to look those over and note any problems, then a motion to approve them would be welcome.
I've looked them over and I think they look fantastic. I motion we approve.
I second that.
Alrighty, so we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Right, Chair Knaddison.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lewis.
Aye.
Member Diedrich.
Aye.
Member Sarno.
Aye.
And we'll have alternate member Heller vote in place of member Whitney.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. So the next item is new business, and I'm not sure who's presenting this one.
Yeah, that'll be me.
Okay.
So I know at your last month's meeting, I was doing a public meeting for the organized garbage collection at that same night. And I think the committee asked that I provide an update. So I did the attached PowerPoint. I'll call that up here and walk you through that. Okay. So we are getting, we have made pretty significant progress. This has been about a 3-year effort, as you know. Most of you have been on the committee for that time. And this was an initial initiative or effort that was brought up by ETAC. So I'll get a little bit into the background in a minute, but just as a refresher, what we're doing is exploring the idea of going to an organized collection system for both garbage and recycling. And this is a process by which the city would contract with one vendor who would provide service to all residential properties. And we define residential properties as single-family homes, duplexes, and triplexes. We've gotten a lot of questions about whether apartment buildings are going to be included, and they're not. So per state statute, a city can only provide this type of service or require it up to 7 units. So above 7 units or 8 or above, then that's considered a multifamily, and they have probably larger bins anyways that wouldn't be serviced by these same vehicles. So that is our limit. The Citizens Committee that was formed to consider the organized collection. Also, we have about 55 properties that are between triplexes and those 7 units, so 55 throughout the community. And we said, let's not include them. That was the direction of the Citizens Committee. So we are focused on about 9,600 households once you calculate the single family, duplexes, and triplexes. The goals really of this effort was not necessarily for staff to give a decision, but instead to really understand what residents think and get their opinions and collect all that information so that we can hand that back to the city council to determine what the next steps are. So we want to really be clear about how we communicate what the program will be considered. And if we are to move forward, what is the process by which that would look like? And ultimately so next Monday night, we'll be meeting with the city council to talk about possible next steps. These were the original 11 citizens committee members. This group was formed back in June of 2020. And you can see there the makeup. We have had several people drop off. And so we're down to the final 6 now. We've had 23 meetings overall in the past about roughly a year and a half. So a lot of time and effort has been put in by this group to really help formulate where we are and where we're going. Okay, so we'll get into the background a little bit. So again, this was brought up by ETAC, as well as kind of when I first started Keep Englewood Beautiful. I went to a budget advisory committee meeting to talk about garbage, and then CASE, which is the Citizens for the Advancement of a Sustainable Englewood. It's not an official board and commission of the city, but it is an organized group within the community, and met with them as well. So there was a kind of a consensus that, hey, we should really dig into this more. We've talked about it on and off over the years. And so I think that was really the impetus to get this started. So we did put together an initial survey, and you can see the timeline there, kind of the late summer, fall of 2019. And we held 3 public meetings back then. And if you attended one of those, I think, Chris, you did, I'm pretty sure. It's maybe some of the others did too, but they were really well attended. I would say probably at least, 150 people at each one of those. And then what we did was we prepared a summary of the questions and answers that were asked. And again, based on that input from the community, staff developed an initial RFP that we put out to the waste haulers. As we were kind of collecting that information and getting those proposals back, the city council formed that citizens committee. So their first task was to look at those 2 proposals that we received. Sorry, hold on. Min?
He raised his hand. He has something to say.
So the committee's recommendation, I'm sorry, okay. Come on. Min. Sorry about that. So the Citizens Committee recommended that after reviewing the proposals, they actually recommended that the City Council reject them. They wanted to instead rewrite the RFP themselves because they felt that they could better incorporate elements of the program that would better serve residents, and they thought that they could reduce the cost from what we had received at that time. That was all, roughly, just go back there for a minute. June, July 2020, it was kind of at the beginning of COVID. We weren't quite that far into it yet, but certainly kind of at the cusp there. So we did work then for almost a year and a half to rewrite the new RFP. That was issued in August of 2021, as it says there. And then we got 2 proposals back, same 2 haulers, in November of 2021. And since that time, the committee has gone through those. They've actually made some recommendations to the city council, which I'll go over in this PowerPoint presentation. And then for the past couple of months, we have been collecting again input from the community now that we have actual costs for them to consider. So before, in the 2019 survey, it was very theoretical. What are you paying now? what might you pay, that sort of thing. Now we have actual costs that people can compare their current rates to and say, would I be in favor of this or not? Some of the advantages of going to an organized collection system would be increased efficiency. So as you can imagine, right now we have 6 licensed haulers within the community. One of them might pick up 1 house in a block. Some of them might pick up 5, some of them might pick up 10. But every one of those trucks is traveling the full length of that street or alley. So the efficiency would come from 1 truck picks up all houses. And ultimately that leads to decreased pavement wear and tear, less emissions, and less fuel consumption overall. We also, it would probably be safer because you'd have fewer trucks on the street. We also think an advantage is greater community control, meaning that the city would structure the program and be able to say what we want to include, what we don't want to include. This is where we get into recycling for all households. Right now, maybe about 1/3 don't recycle, but we would like to encourage that more so. And then getting competitive bidding, obviously. So right now, what we found, especially through the second survey, people are paying widely different rates. And so, you know, you pay what your neighbor pays. There's consistency in that, consistency in service, as well as getting better customer service overall, because we do have 1 contract, 1 point of contact. And then the increases are automatically built in. So again, what we saw probably pre-COVID, this wasn't as much a concern, but when we hear about inflation rising at 7 and 8%, the way that we structured this, the proposal was that it can be an increase of no more than 3% per year. So there is a cap on how much they can increase the contract each year, therefore making it more planful and predictable for homeowners as you pay your bill. Some of the disadvantages is then there's no choice in provider, meaning if you love your garbage hauler right now, you have a personal relationship with the guy who picks up your garbage, you're not going to be able to use them anymore. And a lot of people, that's a big deal. They want to have that control themselves. They don't want to hand that over to the city. Whether they have good service or not, they see that as a monopoly, as too much, to that second point, too much involvement and oversight by the city. Whereas this is a free market and we should be allowed to choose. So that's a lot of the negatives that we're hearing. And like it says there, it just limits who can bid on the contracts and who is servicing within the community. So what did we request in the RFP? So we established it as a base service, and all of these items would be included for each household. You'd have weekly pickup of garbage, and that's either at the alley or the curbside at your choice. So several haulers right now do not pick up in the alley. They will not, even if that's where your garbage cans are, or your garage faces out to the alley and you store your cans in there. Some of them say, we will service you, but you have to drag your cans out to the front and side of the street. Similarly, every other week collection of recycling, again, either at alley or curbside. And then large item disposal. So this was one impetus as well. We were getting a lot of illegal dumping in alleys and in public rights of way. So mattresses, you name it, you know, appliances, lots of TVs get disposed of and there's no names on them. So it's very difficult to go back after people to collect those costs or get rid of those items. This way, we're trying to provide a convenient way included in your monthly service, so it's not an additional cost, to get rid of those large items when you have them. And the way that it would be set up is you get 2 vouchers per year per household, and each voucher, you would call the company and say, hey, can you come? I've got a bunch of stuff. That you'd arrange a date with them. So it wouldn't be a set date, it would be based on your schedule. And you could, for each voucher, get rid of up to 3 items. So that might be furniture, appliances, it's an approved list. Then you could at the same time get rid of up to 10 bags or bundles of yard waste and 10 bags of additional trash. So all of that would be included in one voucher. We would include the costs on the city's utility bill. So monthly now you're getting your sewer and water bill. We would add this onto that. Therefore, you wouldn't need to pay that bill directly to your waste hauling company. And then each household would receive a garbage and recycling bin with the name of the new provider on it. So if you have existing bins or you use your own trash cans, you wouldn't be able to use those anymore. So this is a little bit complicated, but we set 2 pricing structures. So again, this gets at, for the initial 2 years, it would be fixed. So whatever they put in their bids, it would be fixed for year 1 and year 2. Then after that, they would be allowed to increase at the lesser of 3%, or here it's listed as the Denver Aurora Lakewood Consumer Price Index. So that is a nationally published index of the metro area, essentially. And so if that Denver CPI, let's say, was 5%, it would be the lesser of. So in that case, it would be 3%. If the CPI was 2.7%, then that would be the lower. So the maximum increase would be 2.7% for that year. The first option, as that last bullet says, the maximum total increase would be X% for an X year contract. So that was so if we asked for pricing for 5, 7, and 10 years. So in that example, a maximum total increase would be 5% for a 5-year contract. Neither of them proposed on that. They said that's too restrictive. So that's an additional on top kind of limitation on top of this 3%. So that might allow them, year 3, you could go up 3%, but then year 4, you would be limited to 2%, if that makes sense. And year 5 would have been 0% increase. So we put in another one where basically we take that last bullet out. Same thing where it's the lesser of 3% or the CPI, but we don't have that maximum total increase on there. But again, it would only be 3% per year at the maximum. Where we landed with the committee was that for at least the first year, households could not opt out of the service. So we would require everybody to at least try it out. Then after that first year, if you really don't want to participate, you would then still, per the municipal code, have to show proof of service by another company, and you would still continue to pay the minimum fee for the program administration. Composting, we asked for pricing on that. Neither one provided that. So that was considered an optional service where people would have to pay additional to get composting. But we did ask in the survey, would you be willing to, or are you interested in composting? And if so, at an additional price. And we got about 33% were interested in that. So if we were to move forward with composting, it would likely be a separate request for proposals. There are a couple of companies now who are providing just this service within the Denver metro area. So I think they're probably positioned better to provide this for the community rather than like a large waste hauler. Yard waste. So we did get pricing to hold 2 events per year. Basically, both the haulers would provide dump roll-offs or dumpsters. We would set up a date, let's say on a particular day of the month, both in the spring and the fall, where you could bring your yard waste or your leaves or whatever to a central location and dispose of them there. So we did get pricing for that. So the 2 waste haulers who submitted proposals in this last round were Republic Services and Waste Management. And now the thing is, so that was what we asked for. The few slides that I just went over is what we asked for in the RFP, but what they submitted was different in some cases than what we asked for. So I'll go through that on this slide. So you see there, I talked about alley or curbside pickup for garbage. So Waste Management, which is the middle column, said, no, we're not going to do that. They would only provide pickup for households who currently have alley service. They would allow those to continue to be serviced in the alley, but anybody who's out the curbside, so you basically wouldn't have the choice to go back to alley. While Republic Services, yep, we'll do both alley and curbside pickup based on where the homeowner wants it. Similarly, for recycling, it would be Waste Management said, no, we'll only pick up those who currently have it. Republic said, yes, we will. On the other hand, large item disposal, Waste Management said, yep, the way you have it set out with the 2 voucher system, the 10 items or the 3 items plus the 10 bags of yard waste, 10 bags of trash, yep, we'll do that. Republic said, no, we're not going to do that. Instead, similar to what I talked about with the yard waste event, people would have to bring their items to a central location to be able to drop them into dumpsters, where we then have to get rid of those dumpsters. And that would be a particular day. And really the impediment is if you don't have the right type of vehicle, let's say a pickup truck or something, how do you get a mattress to there? Older people, how do you get, a big piece of furniture there? So it's having the means of transportation plus the resources to be able to bring it to a central site. And then finally, another major consideration was the opt-out. So Waste Management said, yep, we're okay with the way you laid out the opt-out for year 2 and beyond, but they reserve the right to renegotiate their rates if more than 10% of people opt out. As a comparison, the city of Golden, which has had their garbage program in place for a number of years, has about a 3% opt-out rate. We have no idea what to expect, but we anticipated probably around that same rate. But they're saying, if we get to be more than 10%, we're going to lose efficiency, and therefore we have to consider raising our prices. Now, Republic Services said they weren't even open to that. They said people will not be allowed to opt out, meaning if we wanted to allow homeowners to opt out the city, we would still have to pay for every one of those households somehow to have that service. So if their minimum cost was $20 per household, we would still be on the hook to pay for that. So how do we essentially subsidize those homes who are opting out, or do we continue to make them pay $20 per month, plus then they would still be paying for service through another company? So it's really not feasible or realistic. I'll stop there. Are there any questions at this point? It's a lot of information. Okay.
Ooh, sorry, I have a
Oh.
question.
Yeah.
Should we raise hands or should we speak up? Greg, do you have a preference?
Just, yeah, I think just go ahead and speak up if you have a question. Go ahead, Member Diedrich.
Okay, yeah, just in the bottom right corner with Republic Service, do we know what the minimum service fee is? Is it reduced from the standard service fee?
No, so it's basically, so it would be so much, what if you were to sign up for, if we went with Republic Services, I believe the minimum fee that they charged was $23 per month.
Okay. I'm really excited to see this presentation. I'll have some more questions later. I kind of want to hear what the group has to say, but this has been quite a process, and your group has done a great job working through this. I know you've done it before too, and been through the ropes. So thank you for the update and continuing to work hard on this. I'll let others that have questions ask if they have any. I know you still have more to present as well.
Thank you. And yeah, Member Lewis, I see your Zoom hand raised.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. This is a great presentation. I do have 2 questions. Well, first, I did see the public opinion question, and I know you did, I think you did this with in Commerce City, right? Before?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was under the impression that there was going to be a drastic price decrease, but I haven't heard anything about that. Like, I was thinking like 30% decrease, but not in this presentation nor in the public opinion was there anything about a price cut, which I think would draw a lot of people on board. So is there no longer a price cut?
Yeah, my cost slide is the next one, so I'll get to that next.
Okay. And then the second question is also, I wonder why only 2 providers responded.
Yeah, we don't know that. We
Okay.
had a mandatory pre-proposal meeting. So we did send letters to each of the 6 licensed haulers, or maybe there were only 5 at the time, but we did send them a letter so they were notified of the RFP. 4 attended that mandatory meeting, but ultimately we only got 2 proposals. So
Okay.
not sure at this point why they chose not to submit a proposal. Once we finish the process, we will go back and ask those two other companies kind of their reasoning for that.
Okay. Well, also, I honestly, this is really impressive. So thanks, Maria. This is great.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. All right. If you're okay, Chair Knaddison, I'll continue.
Please.
Okay. All right, so costs. So we did get a very detailed cost breakdown from each company, and I've kind of summarized it in this one table, but ultimately the prices were very similar. And again, we're looking at annual increases that would be capped at 3% annually. But to answer your question, Vice Chair Lewis, yes, we were anticipating it being much less. You know, this is in line with what some people pay. I think we've found through the survey that probably about 30% of people pay more than this, what's identified here, but about 50% pay less. So we were anticipating, I think part of it, you know, compared to the Commerce City, we didn't have alleys. So here we're asking for a higher level of service in that and this was a conscious decision by the committee to say, yes, we want to do alley pickup, but we also want to give the option for curbside. And the more opportunities or service levels you want, the more it's going to cost. So the fact that both of them were very close in price tells me, you know, I don't think we're necessarily getting a higher price. This is what it takes to service both the front and the back, essentially.
But we also get the option for big ticket pickup once in a while. So that's a big win. And so.
And I don't think many, if anybody has that right now. So that would be an additional benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just in general here, the base service, if you look, and we looked at a 7-year contract because one of the waste management didn't propose on the 5-year, just the 7 and 10 year. So we looked at just the 7-year to try and get as close as apples to apples. There's a lot of nuance in there, why there is a range, but it's anywhere from $25 to $29 per month. We would have a city administrative fee of about $2 per month. That's to oversee the program and to do communication, education, and outreach. And there would be staff people associated with that as well. So our total monthly cost is roughly between $27 and $31. And then if you anticipate that maximum being conservative of a 3% annual increase after the first 2 years, which are fixed, you would be up after 7 years at about $32 to $36 per month. Okay. So this is the way we went about our communications and outreach plan. So we do have now this Englewood Engaged page. It's part of the city website, but it is specifically geared towards projects. So if we go there, I can call that up after the meeting, but it is all kind of one page dedicated to each of these topics. And we have this talk and trash page on the Englewood Engaged website. So we have a lot of information out there. We also did a Citizens Magazine ad. We just sent a postcard to every home in the city announcing the survey, as well as pointing them to the Englewood Engaged page. We did a number of social media posts, and then did this video, as well as hold the 2 public meetings. So that was exactly at this time last month. I did one on March 8th that was virtual, and then one that was in person. And Michelle actually helped with both of those as well. And then we created a FAQ sheet based on the questions that we received in the both in the survey and in those public meetings. So overall, we had over 1,700 responses, which again, if we're targeting roughly 9,600 households, now that was not restricted to 1 person per household, but that's an amazing response, really. Really just tremendous. We also, we pushed those out primarily, you know, through the Englewood Engaged page, but we did have hard copies available at the Malley, the Rec Center, and at the Civic Center. And you could also call into Public Works and we would mail one out to you if you needed that. But overall, we left that open for roughly, I think, 5 to 6 weeks, and got that number of responses back. So key survey results. So overall, we asked, well, how is your service right now? You know, and about 61% said they were either satisfied or very satisfied with their current service. So that's good. That doesn't mean that it couldn't get better, but that's kind of a, you know, current kind of data point. The current costs paid by residents were all over the board. So we have people paying, you know, less than $16 per month. Typically that's without recycling, but ranging all the way up to over, you know, 30, well, like I said, about 31% pay more than $32 per month. We also talked about the opt-out administrative fee and would you be okay with that kind of concept? Generally, that was very split, kind of 41-50 or 49-51%. And overall, the acceptability of the proposed costs, we asked a couple of different questions around costs. So if this is the price, you know, to get at the nuance of this, you know, so we asked, okay, if you're going to pay that $27 to $31 and you did get alley pickup, but you didn't get large item disposal, would you be okay with that? Or would you be amenable to this option? Similarly, if you didn't get recycling or garbage or recycling pickup in the alley, but you did get large item disposal, is that more amenable? So we got a variety of responses to that. Overall, again, generally it was pretty split. Overall, the key concerns were cost. By far and away, about 78% of respondents said that cost was a major factor for them. Then at about 63% was service reliability, meaning they wanted to make sure that it was picked up every single week. Has been a big issue. And again, that's kind of like if they don't have the address, if they for some reason missed the property, then you're having to take an extra step to go and call the company and have them come out again. And then interestingly enough, the third highest was having yard waste. So that was more important to people than the large item pickup. Apparently a lot of people already have that in their base service. They want to, and it's usually outside of the can, meaning you can put out as much yard waste as you want, and they'll pick that up along with your, you know, weekly trash service. And that was an area of interest for people and ended up being the third highest number of respondents. So these are the Citizens Committee recommendations. I won't read through these in detail, but basically knowing that the two proposals did not meet all of the marks, basically the Citizens Committee said, we think staff should go back and try and negotiate some of these points with the waste haulers. Now, one of those, for example, there, that first bullet was, it needs to be less than $25 per household per month, inclusive of the city administrative fee. So if we go back to the pricing just for a minute, you know, right now they want it to be $25, and right now we're anywhere from 27 to 31. I don't know if we propose that to the companies, if they'll say, you know, go fly a kite, you know, do whatever, say something worse, I don't know. But this is, so these kind of points here, they still think it's important that households should have a choice of alley or curb service, just because, again, that got such a huge response from people. Continue to offer, you know, or limit it to the annual price increases of the 3%, include, and then they recommended that we include yard waste on a weekly basis and maybe do away with the large item pickup. That's the third item or the third bullet here on this next round. Also possibly getting rid of or reducing some costs by getting rid of the citywide yard waste events. So those two events that I mentioned in the spring and the fall, maybe we can look at reducing some costs that way. And then also they really wanted to emphasize this, the last bullet there, we also asked a question is, how do you want this decision to be made? Is that by the city council? Is it by a ballot initiative or something else? And by far and away, I believe it was about 72% said, let it put it on the ballot. But the Citizens Committee actually said, no, we think it should stay, the decision should remain with the city council, because they felt that they could better manage the elements of what would go into an RFP instead of a simple yes or no answer on a ballot. Okay. And then they did have some other recommendations. You know, if we couldn't get these things, we could revert back. So if for example, if there is some nuance here in how we would set up the alley service, potentially if there was some pushback on that, as well as the bin size. So if we were to move forward, we do need to give everybody about a 6-month notice. So our intent would be is that we discuss this next Monday with City Council again. They are going to hold a public hearing, meaning anyone can come forward and speak at that meeting about this topic. They may make a decision next Monday, or they may push it to a future meeting. But ultimately, we're trying to negotiate a contract in May of this year, so that we would take about 6 months to go through kind of a education awareness of the program, so that we could roll this out either late this fall or probably most likely now spring of next year, if we were to move forward. And with that, I'll wrap it up and turn it back to Chair Knaddison.
I see Member Lewis and Member Heller have their hands up. I'm not sure, Member Lewis, if yours is new or from last time, but Member Heller, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I have a few questions, and thank you. I just want to say I've been in support of this, and I'm super excited about having a single hauler, given how many trash trucks drive down our street every week. But one of my questions is, and I think that the citizens would wonder this as well, given some of the cost increases in water, can the city increase their fees? Is there going to be anything written in there about their administrative fees staying the same, or will they increase over time as well?
Good
So
question.
we have broken down that of what that $2 would entail. That I did the math so that is 2 positions, one to manage the overall program, as one as an additional utility billing clerk. So that is primarily salaries. And then we also included the education materials in there. So I think because there will likely be annual increases for salaries, that would go up by that salary increase. So about 3.5% to 4%, anywhere from 2 to 4% per year.
And would that be made public along, if this goes to ballot or in this information? Because it wasn't, just curious, because it wasn't in the slideshow, and
Sure.
just seeing like huge jumps in the water, I think has alarmed people, and just, being aware of how much we'll get.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think the intent would be is because these would be union positions, we would be subject to the union contract. But there wouldn't be like, oh, we're going to add in something major, that would drive up that cost beyond those costs that would have to do with the salaries.
Okay. And then my other, you addressed this a little bit in the slide of renegotiating, because I thought that I would have a pretty substantial drop in mine. I pay less than what the proposal is, and I get recycling as well. So I think I would have thought that with a contract this big, that there would have been a little bit more of a substantial drop in cost. So I don't know, who knows, maybe it's also gas prices going up. So I think it's good to hear that the city is renegotiating that a little bit, and also making sure then that there is some kind of large item pickup. There's some kind of benefit to paying almost the same as I pay right now, but agreeing to this contract. And I know I paid a lot to have some extra large items. So again, this is all anecdotal, it's just me, but knowing that a lot of people have waste management and I pay less than what's being proposed here with recycling is like,
yeah,
sound good. And I'm just curious, this is like, how come, I know people prefer one or the other, whether it's alley or street, but I always thought alleys were sort of designed for trash pickup. Like, what's the reasoning for not just saying like, everybody who has an alley gets alley everybody who does not have an alley gets street pickup? I'm just curious. I know
Yeah.
people's opinions, but what's like the city's take on why not just say this is the way it's gonna be?
And this, this is the nuance that I was talking about. So there are some households that just because of your grades, just the lay of the land, you just physically can't get it to the front or the back. And so I think there are some anomalies where to say, yeah, you're on an alley, but they might not use it for a garage or whatever, or they can't carry their trash up to where their alley is. Could we have a system where there's some exceptions, and maybe that would make it easier to just say, yeah, if you're in an alley, you're getting alley service. If you don't have an alley, you're getting it off the street. And then have some opportunity for exceptions, like I said. But other than that, I don't know if it, and like it says, it may reduce overall costs, but I think there is a significant, that also might limit the number or who might bid on the contract then too. So there's trade-offs, obviously. Probably not a clear answer.
No, I get it. I get people get stuck in their ways, myself included. But it's just nice when there's no trucks in the street.
Yeah.
Around and using the alleys for what they're sort of intended for.
Mhm.
And not having a million trash cans blowing around in the wind or floating down the street or tipped over or hit by, that's just, anyway, I could go on.
We have a lot of on-street parking too, so that limits where you can put it or place the bins, how they have access to it. So the alley is more of a natural place to put that.
Yeah. Okay.
Member Diedrich?
Thank you. Yes, a couple of questions here for you. So I'm looking at the slide with the comparison of waste management and Republic services again. I'm kind of curious, the large item disposal on Republic services, does that mean it would still be available to go drop it off somewhere? Or like they would have a location, or would that be like a recurring throughout the year, for Saturday, take it to this parking lot sort of a thing? Or and so along those same lines, I guess a similar question is related to the citizen survey and the yard waste pickup, which I think is a good idea. And some of that yard waste pickup will have effects on other parts of the city. A branch falls in the street, sometimes it just gets run over, but if people know the trash company is going to pick it up, they might just pull it out of the street and then let it get run over. And I know some people in neighborhoods with alleys, a lot of yard waste sometimes gets thrown back there. People's trash cans get full, or they blow the leaves out in the alley from their trees or whatever it may be. So I think that could encourage other improvements with some of the transportation sidewalks, that might help incentivize people to keep other aspects of the transportation infrastructure cleaner by having that available. But relating to the large item disposal and also the slide that you mentioned, there were some yard waste pickup programs. I was hoping you could also maybe talk about what those programs are that might go away, and what the Keep Englewood Beautiful ones are. Just kind of what are those options?
Yeah.
Sorry, long question. Thanks.
Sure. So just to answer your first question there. So for the large item disposal for Republic Services, so they're proposing like twice a year, on a set Saturday, most likely. Yeah, you would bring your items to, let's say, the service center or a park, somewhere where we could facilitate, cars coming in and out somehow. Some central location where you could then dump your stuff off and then head home. So it would be restricted, again, that you have to bring it there, and it would be just a particular day, but it'd only probably be twice a year. The yard waste event that we were talking about was, again, 2 events per year, probably the spring and the fall, to coordinate with like leaf drop and spring cleanup of your yard. And again, you would have to bring that to a designated site for disposal. So the Republic is basically mimicking this for the large item pickup.
Okay. I think that's nice to have, even if it's not necessarily the recurring yard waste pickup. I I look at the opt-out considerations and think about what are the objectives of programs like this for, when we talk about on a committee like this, and we talk about the noise of the trucks and the number of trucks driving on the roads and the alleys versus the streets. And, I think I understand that there are some considerations to have there. And I think it's, generally in the best interest to have, incentivize people to all be on the same plan to streamline things like that. Because that, if we don't, I'm not saying we necessarily have to lock everybody in, and I don't think I quite feel that way, but I think that whatever we can do to kind of incentivize that everybody's on the same program, I think that's just going to keep things simpler. And who knows, but just by virtue of having this, maybe no other trash providers will even want to do service down here if they only have a few customers that are even wanting to sign up anyway. So maybe that's not an issue at all. It is another aspect to that. But I think this is great. The alley pickup versus street pickup, really, Jen, I thought those were great comments that you had about that. And Maria, your considerations about some of the houses on the hills that maybe have a lot of stairs on the front or a long ways up to the back. And, I have an alley. My provider currently does not allow for alley pickup, and it is a bit of a pain to get our trash cans out. I have to move a car out of the driveway to, bring them around. And so it would be great to have that option. So for me, that's kind of near and dear. But, as far as like the large item pickup versus the, single time versus calling for free, my provider, I think Jen mentioned also that she had to maybe pay extra for that. It costs quite a bit for me. It's like a couple of months worth of trash service to have a large item pickup, almost an entire trash bill in some cases. So, that's nice to have available, but even if it was kind of throughout the year or something like that versus something that's on call, I still think that would be a nice thing to have. But I do like the yard waste, I think, a little bit more than the large item pickup, just because that can become a burden because of the nature of our city, and especially in the southern part with a lot of larger lots with a lot of trees and things like that. Anyways, I'll yield back. Want to just provide some comments for the conversation that will be occurring soon.
Ready, thank you. And Member Sarno? Saw your hand up next.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yeah, I just wanted to also echo, I think, a few of the ETAC members here have brought up about being surprised at the lack, I guess, of the cost savings that were anticipated with this RFP. And besides, I think, the great value or benefit of, again, minimizing all the truck traffic and everything that we discussed there, which has its own cost associations for the city itself too. But I'm just a little bit surprised that it's not lower than that. And I would say that it was interesting to me that I think one of the slides that you had comparing waste management with Republic, and basically they felt that the lack of efficiency for having to do both curbside and alley kind of was a part of what they said. Well, we're losing efficiency there, so that's the reason why our costs are as they are. And then also the opting out, so they don't want to have so many people opting out because that's also, again, the lack of efficiency. But my point is that right now we currently, as you mentioned, have 6 carriers or service providers. To me, if we just are ultimately choosing one, you would think that the amount of volume that they're picking up would offset some of these very things that they've brought up to say, well, that's going to cost us an efficiency, whether it's doing curbside and alley, as well as essentially just saying, well, we only so many percent can opt out as well too. So it's all based on that. So in my opinion, and this is my opinion, I'm curious whether these providers have just looked at this proposal or RFP and are looking at this as a way to perhaps not, if not kill it, but just make it to where it's almost to a certain point where it's whether it's worth it for the city or the community to move forward with this.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal opinion on that. But again, that's what I see on that.
Yeah.
So that's one comment there. The other thing that I have was just in regarding to, you mentioned any households with larger than 7 units. So basically apartment buildings and the like, they would not be beholden to this. They would have still what would be the open contract.
Yeah, they would just contract with whomever to
Whomever.
pick up their households
Okay.
or their dwellings.
Yeah. And then the one last thing then would be if the Citizens Committee has pretty much, and whether this has been decided or not, but they've directed the city to go back and renegotiate with both Waste Management and Republic Services. Is that correct?
That's right now the recommendation to the city council from the Citizens Committee. Whether or not we'll do that is really still up to the city council.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm probably thinking too far ahead on this already, but if it is approved, then the city council says, well, let's go ahead and negotiate with Waste Management or Republic Services here. I guess there are certain criteria that need to be met, and what you had on that one slide in order to advance that, or does it again go back based off of those post negotiations on what was agreed to?
Yeah, so I think this is where we would get the city attorney's office involved more fully. So if there was direction to negotiate, there's certain elements that we can or can't negotiate. And we would have them in the room with us. And let's say we got to a point where we could not negotiate these points, then we're probably looking at redoing or doing a new RFP that might tighten some of these requirements down.
Okay, that's pretty much all I had, other than I find it to be just a little bit disappointing in kind of, it's not done yet, but some of these outcomes, or what I've seen from these responses from the carriers or providers here, I'm just curious where this is all leading to, and if this is just something to just diffuse this whole movement towards a single hauler. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Neil. And Member Lewis.
Yeah. Again, I appreciate all the work that's been done on this. I just, to kind of piggyback off Member or Chairman Sarno, does it seem like that they're directing us rather than we're directing them? I mean, we should be getting a discount. Like, that's the whole purpose of this whole thing. And how are we gonna frame this to the general public, and we're not really getting a discount? Like, this is kind of ridiculous. This has been 3 years in the making. Like, come on. Really? This is supposed to be a 30% discount. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say. I know that's just a comment, Vice Chair Lewis, but yeah, I think everybody was surprised by that. So,
well, maybe I think getting more other companies involved, maybe they'll start to, drill the prices down lower. Has there been an adequate push towards that? Because this has been, literally, we've been talking about this for 3 years. 3 years. And this is where we are.
yep.
It's kind of fruitless. I bet you agree with that.
Well, I'm just here to bring the information back. So, like I said, we did reach out to all the haulers, and invite them to propose. For whatever reason, only 2 did. And when we finish the process, then we can go back and so we're still technically under the RFP process. So we would go back and kind of quiz them about why did you or didn't you submit, you know, that might give us some more insights if we were to do this again.
Because otherwise, like when we bring it to the public, it's like, what the heck are you guys doing? That's what they're gonna say. We're doing nothing. We're just spinning our wheels. Honestly.
Thanks for those thoughts. Any more member
Do you
thoughts?
agree or disagree?
I actually disagree.
Well, tell
but-
me why.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, I guess just want to say from the beginning, thank you so much for all this work. And you know, it's been a lot of work over the years and not an easy problem, definitely a, you know, multifaceted and challenging problem to try to resolve. You know, from my perspective and trying to represent the perspective of, you know, ETAC towards the city of looking at transportation issues, this seems like we should support moving to a single hauler from the perspective of reducing the impact on the city's infrastructure, reducing the number of trucks that are on the road who can be, you know, I think have a damaging impact on noise and to the, you know, to especially to pedestrians and to bikes, but also to cars to some extent by taking up space on the road. You know, my experience is that when I first moved to the city, I had Waste Management for service, and then the Lees company, which was acquired by another company, and then I think acquired by Waste Connections. And, you know, along the way, like they all, you know, they would say, hey, Greg, here's your new price. And I didn't have any negotiating ability with them. Or they would say, hey, we're not going to pick up in the alley anymore. And I didn't have any negotiating ability with them. And so I think that moving to the city gives more negotiating ability. But we also have to, you know, be smart in how we're using that. My bill has gone from 2019 to 2022 to my most recent bill went from $67 a quarter to $115 a quarter. If we had this contract locked in, you know, at the exact same price at that $67, my price this year would be $73 a quarter instead of $115. So I sort of feel like locking in the haulers at a specific point and then having that, you know, limit to how much it can go up each year gives us a lot of certainty and confidence about what's coming in the future.
Yep.
I also just want to point out that on the con slide, it said, you know, being administered by the city. And from my experience, I'm really satisfied with the services that I get from the city, especially like sewer and water service and the billing interface for that. I feel like we've had some really strong improvements to that in the last couple of years that feels more modern than what I get from the different trash companies that I've worked with. So that, from my perspective, that feels like a pro. Just want to put that out there. And I feel like the water service, it's been, you know, yes, the price has gone up, but we also had some really catastrophic events in the last couple of years that justify the increased investment and therefore, yes, increased fees to pay for that investment so that we can avoid having catastrophic events from a flood. So, you know, I, like probably many of you, pay attention to Nextdoor pretty regularly. And it seems like, you know, some of the perennial topics, aside from whether or not somebody can put, you know, a bag of dog poo into their trash can, the other topics that come up all the time are complaints about trash going into the alley, just getting dumped in the alley, which I believe that this, you know, single hauler program would address. Complaints about trash companies failing to do pickup, which I believe that the monitoring from the city and the SLAs that these companies will have would help to address that. Complaints about prices of service going up, and this program, you know, has the locked in price, which seems like it addresses that. And then we also, you know, more so in, I think, 2019, and what in my memories started a lot of this conversation was that we had a series of really strong rainstorms that left a ton of water in the alleys. And then the trash trucks were going down, you know, the dirt alleys and turning them into swamps. And the trash companies had like a scramble to say, hey, we're not going to pick up in the alley anymore because we can't drive it. And it was damaging to the alleys. It made them so they needed to be regraded and fixed up. And it was also, I guess, damaging to, you know, made them undrivable for citizens and was a problem for the for the trash trucks as well. So I think that's also an element here that we have to consider. My sense is that the prices right now are really weird just because of what's going on with labor market and the supply chain. So, getting a new truck is not as easy as it was, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I guess. And so I think that probably the companies are having a hard time predicting, hey, if I have to jump from serving 30% of Englewood to serving all of it, what do I need in that first year to be able to, buy the service or buy the, hire the people and buy the trucks that I need. I also think that, as I understand it, that they need different levels of crew for alley service versus street service. And so we have said to them, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then we're surprised when the price comes back at the same, at a higher price point. And so it feels to me like if we want the whole world, then we shouldn't, in terms of service level, then we shouldn't be surprised if the pricing doesn't have a big discount to it. I don't feel like I have enough awareness of people's preferences in the survey results or, from talking to folks to have a preference between the two proposals. But I do have a strong preference for the city moving ahead with choosing a single provider. I think it's really smart the way the opt-out works. I think it's really smart the way that the periodic renegotiation works that keeps competition in the program. And so it feels like it's been set up in a way that makes a lot of sense to me to give the best service possible to the city. And then the last thing I just want to say is that the point from the citizens' recommendations about having the city council be the one to make the decision feels like a really strong point that we should consider and makes sense to me. And I support that idea. Alrighty, so I saw 2 hands go up. Member Diedrich.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, a couple comments. I echo many of the things you just said, so I will not be repetitive on those, but I did the same thing. I looked up my bill and looked at what happened, and it's gone up significantly. And right now, I don't get some of the options that are in these proposals, and I pay a price that's in line with the higher end of these proposals. And so, I would be gaining benefits regardless on this. And I think there are several neighbors like that. And the price lock part of your conversation, mine has gone up 40% in the last 2 years. And it'd be not, and I had services canceled as well, which I had no say in. And so, I think there's a big benefit to that people kind of miss when they think about the immediate need with some of those things that would be better for the long term, as well as the accountability of the service providers, like you said, with the SLAs. And so I think there's definitely some value to that. Also, this is a little off of topic, but also very germane. Other communities provide these programs in a different way than we provide them here. And what we're talking about here is sort of a unique trash fee that is just, paid on a monthly basis. We're talking about opt-outs. Other nearby communities have this fee just baked into property and sales taxes or other things like that. And the community members are just required to pay required to use the provider that the city is contracted with. And so those are just kind of baked into the cost of, property ownership in areas. And there are, of course, exceptions for large businesses, commercial and all of that, right? But, I don't know if that model or situation has been looked at, and I don't want to come through a wrench in this. We've been running a process for a while, but looking at something like that, if that would gain efficiency and we could get the other benefits, something to consider. And so to the point about city council maybe making the decision on this and the negotiating power at that sort of level versus a citizen vote for changes on things like these, I definitely think that there is some value in that and the ability to be flexible. And I've seen things in other communities where they require them to be a vote, and Colorado has unique laws around tax changes and things, to go off my previous comments about including this in a property tax or something. So it can get complicated quickly, right? But the city council, kind of having approval over that or being the one that sort of manages it, I think is potentially a benefit for something like this, and the long-term benefits of finding a partner for a program like this, you know, kind of outweigh some of the short-term things that people sort of grumble about, and you know, having a unified approach and being able to, you know, have a provider that is accountable, that sort of services the city. I think there's a lot of value in that. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And I think I saw Member Sarno, your hand go up next, and then Member Lewis.
Yeah, so yeah, Chair Knaddison. So just to go back to, I think, some of my comments there, and to maybe just clarify a bit. And I agree with your point regarding that limited to 3% on that, you know, the annual price increases. I go through waste management, and every 3 months I'm getting increases that exceed that. And so they go there. But my point was that it's just something that I hope doesn't get lost in translation to the community, because ultimately all these things that the committee, as from what I'm hearing from these general comments, are all in support of this, the single trash hauler, and whether it's, you know, impacts to our roadways and all these other things. According to the survey and according to Maria's slide, I think cost was really the largest concern from the community itself. And so, you know, that's where, you know, you have the sometimes what happens is that you have a knee-jerk reaction of, why would the city move forward with this proposal when it's going to be the same or even more than what I'm paying for now. And there's a way that we can reinforce that, you know, the capping the price increases at 3%, and especially considering the inflation, everything that we're seeing now, just go through the roof, that it's actually a benefit long-term for the community. I think that would be a good way to do it. But again, it just goes back to those knee-jerk reactions of, hey, why are we moving forward to this when it's not any benefit, at least in terms of cost, that a lot of people just kind of cling on to that. So that was my comment on that. And I was hoping that with a little bit, again, higher volume, more efficiency from these single trash hauler, that it would be, I wasn't even looking for some great discount or whatever, but it's just comparable or even a little bit less. And I think that's what all of our expectations were. And that's what we were discussing from the onset of this whole, you know, movement or recommendation here. So it's just a little bit disappointing to me that that didn't happen. Not at all am I saying that this is something that I think should move forward and doesn't have its strengths as well too. So it greatly does for the community. But I just hope that that's not something that encourages undue pushback, if you will. So that's it. That's what I've got. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Member Dietrich.
Thank you again. Yeah, I think, so I have a couple of other comments here. I think the alley pickup is important. And I think the community and some of the reasons to have that are important. And I think that the language in the proposal summary slide for waste management is concerning to me, saying only households who currently have that access would be able to be serviced in the alley. And the way that I read that is they are looking at slowly whittling that away so that we don't have alley service anymore. And I think that will quickly reduce the number of people who have alley service. I was a waste management customer. They took away my alley service. That's why I switched providers. So I think that as it appears on that proposal summary slide, it might as well just say no alley service for garbage or recycling, is how I read that. So I that's concerning to me. And I think that's important in the community. And then regarding the costs, you know, I mentioned some of the reasons, you know, like the inflation locked in on that, as well as, you know, the pricing personally for me is not out of line what I'm paying. But I was kind of also curious if this was like a best and final, or, you know, we've had some discussion about the city council being able to negotiate, and, you know, we haven't signed anything. So we can of course continue conversations, but I was just kind of curious, did we get best and final bids, or is there an expectation that like realistically there is some negotiation room? Because there were, of course, many good reasons discussed on this call already. So I'm just kind of curious if that's really an option based on the way that we received the bids.
Yeah, if I could, I would say there is some room for negotiation. Again, how far we can push that, or if the pricing, I mean, I think we'd have to give up service in order to reduce the price. So I think there is an opportunity to negotiate, but again, I'm going to take the lead from the city attorney's office.
Thanks for that insight. Yeah, one thought, to a couple different people's comments. I think that part of our job as the committee is to one of our jobs is to get input from different people and then research the issues and try to apply that input on our own perspective and figure out what's the right path to go. And then the other side is that, since we are people who are being briefed on these issues and have done external research as well, perhaps, then we have another job relaying information back to our communities. And I feel like on this cost issue that we can talk to folks about how, hey, this locks, your price just went up, didn't it? Great. Well, this will lock us in at 3%. Hey, you don't have large item pickup, or, we can talk about the different benefits that are guaranteed from this program and the different ways that having one provider for the whole city is helpful by reducing the dumping. So, I just want to encourage everybody to, I'm confident that we're all doing that at different levels, but encourage everyone to keep doing that. Yeah, I see Member Lewis, your hands up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would also add to that I think our job also is, because I don't know about you, I respect all of you a ton of, and so I think our job here, because we're only a monthly committee, is to challenge each other, a little bit, and just kind of because otherwise, if it's just like a click yes, here we go kind of thing, then what are we really doing? We all have busy lives, busy jobs, and I remember Jen, I don't know you, but I know Member Diedrich, Member Knaddison, Member Sarno, and I don't really know Member Tim Hoos, but I think it's important that we challenge each other. And I know this is a difficult situation with this water or the sewage issue, so we'll figure it out. That's all I have.
Alrighty. Well, it seems like we've reached the end of our speakers list, so to speak. So just looking back at the agenda, we do have the next item on the agenda is to, was discussion, and then potentially vote on our perspective about organized trash collection. So if anybody would like to make a motion, that would be very welcome.
Yeah, I have a question on that one. Are we looking at, just broadly speaking, about organized trash collection, or is the agenda item looking for us to make a recommendation on one of the two proposals?
I think that we can choose what is included in our support, yeah, or our disagreement, or whatever we want to say. We could choose, yeah. So
what do you guys
I'm
think?
in support 100%. I want things done.
I would vote in favor. I mean, I think I probably did a few years ago when we just voted in favor of creating the committee, and so I will definitely vote in favor of supporting organized trash collection, single provider throughout the city. And if you guys want to add more things onto that about one of these proposals or something, I'm happy to discuss that too. What do you guys think?
Is member Lewis, is his hand still up? I don't know if he wants to go again
Oh,
or.
sorry, I didn't mean
Oh, sorry.
to. Yeah, I'm in support. Just what member Diedrich said. I totally agree with discussing more things, but I am in 100%, 1000% support.
Yeah, member Sarno, go ahead.
Yeah, so Chair Knaddison, I guess this is the question we're discussing right now, is that in claiming, well, ETAC's either support or unsupport for this initiative, basically, is this in a general sense? Is that basically what we're going towards right here? Because, I mean, there's still many steps to follow, it seems. So I guess in a general sense, we support that the city continues on and I guess the citizens committee continues, or is their work done?
I think that I guess so. From my perspective, it feels like we could say, that we encourage the city to move forward with organized collection, and to, I would say to, take a vote themselves to move forward with choosing accepting one of the RFPs and negotiating it as appropriate or something like that. So it gives them space to do what they think is the right thing to do, but that it promotes them making the action themselves rather than pushing it to the ballot.
Yeah, I think we can tie, depending on if people, it seems like the consensus is that people are in favor of supporting this initiative, broadly speaking. I think we have consensus on that. And so to me, the question is, do we want to push more, right? Is there a proposal you guys like better? Is there something specific? Because I think we can make a motion here to say we support the initiative and recommend the city do X, Y, Z. And they can take and do with that what they want, but I think they're looking for input from us on what we think they should do. And so, if we support one of the, proposals over the other, we could recommend that, or we could recommend they go back to both, ask for, best and final with some modifications. But I think our guidance could probably help them out quite a bit on this. So, what do you guys think about the proposals, or are you okay committing that kind of thing?
Member Diedrich, I personally, I was hoping that there'd be a little bit of cost difference, because I think that would be more palatable to the, the general public in our community. But I'm 100% on board otherwise, no matter what. I'm just saying, like, that's how I feel. I really do, because I thought we're gonna get like, because there'll be a no-brainer, because otherwise, I get it, people want choice. That's what they want. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could recommend moving forward with something here. And I think that would really help give city council some direction on what to do next, and whether it's, send it to a vote or have council do it, make the decision. And I, personally, I'm in favor of the Republic one. I'd like to see a little bit more negotiation if we can, but of course, and I agree, Patrick, of course, a discount is definitely going to help sell this for some people. And there's probably some people paying a lot more for trash that don't even know it and aren't paying attention, right now too. So broadly speaking, I'm more in favor of the Republic proposal right now. And I think,
doesn't it just seem like if there's no cost savings, then what is it? It's just us as a council group, like, pulling strings and making things happen. Like, we got to show a benefit, because we're trying to do right for the community.
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of benefits beyond just the strict dollar amount. And
you're right.
We've got reduced trucks on the streets and less wear on the infrastructure, less noise pollution.
You're right.
Accountability, and if we can lock in pricing and guarantee that for some people, that I think is pretty good as well, easier to manage. So I think there's a lot of benefits besides just the price, and of course, the we all want a discount. And I think maybe we can probably negotiate a little bit more. I think you brought up some good points. And, you know, like I said, I'm currently paying roughly the same amount and getting somewhat similar service minus the alley. But I would like, if they told me today I could pay $10 more and get alley service, I would probably say yes. And I think there's some
Yeah.
neighbors, because I live in
Yeah.
an area, you know, where we've got these triplexes where they have to keep their trash out front in the front yard all the time. And it ends up sitting out by the street all week long and things like that. But I think there are these
Yeah,
other
100%.
improvements
I
too.
get you.
So.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, but this is an open conversation. As a committee, I think, you know, this is a good opportunity for us to provide great input on a significant issue in the city or thing that can, you know, help us broadly. I don't know,
So
do you-
so member Diedrich, so recap for me, you mentioned that you did have waste management and they would not provide alley service. Is that correct? Is that?
Yes, that's correct. I initially chose them when I moved to the city, and I think there were about 10 or 11 different providers at that time, but they had good pricing and they had alley service, and I went with them. A lot of my neighbors had them, but they took it away, and I noticed several people switched because of that.
I'm just curious because I do have waste management and I do also have alley service. So I don't understand the rhyme or reason why they changed that for you, or denied or rejected it, or just outright changed it. But this again speaks to the inconsistencies that's even within some of these haulers themselves. It just, you know, if it's not the pricing, it's actually the services as well too. So this is another point to be made for, you know, the city being involved and doing something that's just more even-handed for the community. So I was just curious about that because I did see, I think Jen, you had mentioned about in your comments there, support Republic due to alley. So, and I'm sitting there going, well, I've got waste management and it's in the alley, and haven't had an issue with that. They haven't said we're going to terminate your alley service or anything. So, but apparently for other parts of the city, they've done that. So.
Yeah, we got a Dear John with a very short notice and no reduction in price. And, you know, yeah.
And you don't live too far from me in the zip code there. So I'm just curious how that.
Yeah, I'm curious too. You know, we can talk all day about it, but you know, it's neighborhood's flat. We don't have an extraordinarily steep hill or anything like that. Yeah, so I think that's, you know, one of the benefits though is that accountability and that consistency, and maybe, you know, speaking back to going back and negotiating on things, you know, I don't know, you know, waste management seems very adverse to the alleys. I can understand, yeah, there are some things, you know, maybe there are commitments we can make on the city's behalf of helping make sure those alleys are clear. Or, you know, with the trees growing, maybe we can increase a little bit of enforcement on shrubbery in the alley if that's one of the issues. Or maybe there are some things we can talk about where you know, maybe the alley pickup, you have to sign up for it. It's not automatic and you have to request it, or, you know, because they need some consistency and they can't just drive down every alley checking to see if there's trash out there, right? So, you know, there might be a happy medium with something like that I think wouldn't really be burdensome on the community, but also help with logistics, which could in turn reduce some of the costs potentially. So, you know, when we talk to them, either whatever provider it might be, you know, I think those are some things we should consider. Maybe if the alleys have less potholes, which would be a function of less trash trucks in the alley in the first place, but also maybe we increase grading one more time a year or something if that's an issue for them. Or, you know, I'd be interested in what's driving the cost because of the alleys, because I get it. You know, we have what, 40 something miles of alleys in the city. So for them to drive up and down each one of them is a considerable increase. You know, it's almost twice as many. Well, it's 50% more, you know, trips, twice as many, I guess, up and down the city. Yeah, twice as many. Yeah, anyways, some things to consider, but, you know, I think we should definitely make a motion. I'm in favor of supporting this. I would probably say, you know, right now Republic's my favorite, but if we want to recommend to go back with some questions or improvements, I would be in favor of that as well.
Again, just so I'm clear from Director DeAndrea in terms of the negotiations, right now, the Citizens Committee is not selected to negotiate with one or the other. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And is it necessary for the committee to choose one or the other to do that, or just kind of off the information you give us, we could do that?
Yeah, it's really, again, I think as Chair Knaddison said, it's up to you how you want to structure it, and if you even want to structure a recommendation. So.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
If we want to recommend certain things the city focuses on, we can do something like that. You know, maybe it's not one provider over the other, but I don't know, Patrick, how you feel about large item pickup versus, you know, yard debris, or, you know, the alley versus the street. But, you know, we don't have to necessarily pick one. We could say we'd prefer they focus on these 3 items or something like that. Price included, right? I know. Craig, what do you think?
I think I feel like I'm ready to move on. We have, you know, member Heller mentioned she had to drop, and I'm just watching the time and want to make sure that we're.
Oh,
Um,
Oh, I didn't see that.
so
Sorry, member Heller, for being long-winded about this.
oh, I just want to say, I totally agree with I respect all of you guys. Like, you guys, I consider you guys friends, you know, like,
I'm looking for my clapping button here. Hold on a second
I
here.
know.
Thanks. That's all right. I can't find it now.
Only member Sarno wants to hang out. You
There you
guys,
go.
member Knaddison, I don't know. Don't want to hang out. Yeah, I feel like you have a family or something.
I do, and also want to make sure that we're respecting the, you know, the 3-person limit. So I guess
We can be friends. Don't worry about it.
keep things rolling along. I will make a motion to express ETAC support for organized garbage and recycling collection proposal from Republic, and for City Council to vote themselves on the current or freshly negotiated proposal.
I'll second that.
Ah, got me, Chris. Nice.
Got a faster connection here with the
There you
Wi-Fi.
go. There you go, Chris.
Alrighty, any discussion or suggestions of amendments?
I think the city's, if we're recommending to the city to go forward with that, I think that's good. And I think the city will do their due process to, you know, work the contract as best as they can as well. But broadly speaking, I agree. I just, no comment, I guess.
I liked your suggestion of giving them like a specific direction. I think that that's valuable, and they don't have to follow it, you know, exactly or at all. Obviously, that's their prerogative, but I think that giving them more specific advice is valuable to the extent we're in agreement. Alrighty. So given I don't see any hands raised or anybody moving their mouse, so I guess we'll go to a vote. Michelle, if you could call people out.
Chair Knaddison,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lewis,
You're on mute. Not sure if you're talking. We just can't hear you.
Do we maybe go back to Vice Chair Lewis?
yes. Member Diedrich,
Aye.
Member Sarno.
Aye.
Okay, Vice Chair Lewis, are you still there?
Hi,
All right,
I'm
motion
here.
carries.
You got video too. Great.
I have video. Who knew?
Welcome.
Trust me.
All righty.
Yeah, that was
thanks,
exciting.
everybody. Yeah. Yay.
Good job, guys.
Yay. Great. So the next item on the agenda, increased funding for infrastructure programs. This was mine. Just wanted to, I saw this pop up in the news. If you click on the link in the agenda, you'll get to it, but basically just that there's some funding that's available for some specific kinds of projects, and they look like projects that are commonly things that ETAC supports. So why I wanted to encourage the city, as I'm sure you're already doing, but just wanted to lend my support to maximizing this opportunity of getting funding to make improvements to the great city of Englewood.
I think the updated walk and wheel plan will come in handy when we apply for those funds. I think having a plan like that definitely helps. So I think that's something we'll look for that call and see what we can possibly fit into some of that.
Absolutely. Yep, I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely timely having that updated plan there. It's always nice to show that it fits into a master plan. So it'll be, we can look at.
Did you have a comment on that, Member Dietrich? I saw you on mute.
No, good find.
Okay, great. So next thing up is director's choice. And I guess the one thing I reached out to a member of the Citizen Committee for Organized Garbage Collection, and one thing that they mentioned was that they have a specific cutoff time to their meetings, and I felt like that could be a useful thing for our team as well, to have some predictability there. So no, I don't want to make any changes for tonight, but just wanted to throw that idea out there, and we can discuss it. I'll follow up with folks in email and see if anybody has any preferences on that. But I feel like, especially meeting monthly, it feels like the meetings don't go too long, but having some predictability to the timeline could be a beneficial thing for me personally, and perhaps for others. And director's choice, I stole it. Sorry. Director DeAndrea, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, just one thing, just a reminder that a week from Monday on the 25th is that joint meeting of the boards and commissions to talk about the 2023 capital improvement program that will be held in the community room at 6 p.m. And if you could join, that would be great.
Excellent, thank you. And I already used my chairperson's choice, so let's go for committee member's choice. How about Vice Chair Lewis, if you have anything you wanted to, any walk-on topics for tonight? Sure, if you're, I can't hear you. I don't know if other folks can.
I think that was to you, Patrick. Oh, he's signing.
My ASL isn't that good, sadly. Okay. Member Dietrich, if you have anything.
Just a brief comment. In my neighborhood, they've been replacing a lot of the sidewalk corners, ramps up and down out of the street where the sidewalks come together, and they're looking good. Good feedback from the neighbors on them. It's funny, they will comment on the inconsistency on some of them, and without knowing that every corner is at a different height and the drains are a little different, and so they can't all be exactly the same. And so yeah, generally very well received, and people seem to like them. So good job to the city on that update that they've been working through for a while here. Nothing else on my end.
Thank you. Member Sarno?
Oh, just wanted to bring the attention of Assistant Director Hoos. I think that was our last meeting we discussed basically some of the work that would be going on Old Hampton, right here, initiating that, or that might have been a couple meetings ago with Director DeAndrea as well too. So I was by there today, right at Clarkson and Old Hampton there. So they're hard at work there. Looks like they're doing some storm pipe and some manholes and all that good stuff. So good to see some movement. And just wanted to say that, yes, it's out there and we see it.
They're doing a lot of investigation work right now and finding out what's there and what the existing conditions are like, so they can then start planning for the improvements. So we
Yeah,
have to get a lot of data right now.
I imagine some utilities are involved in that as well too. Just
Yeah,
working
the
through that.
utility department as well is out there helping them, and we're getting all the data now to see what we have and what we need to do to make it better.
Excellent. Thank you. That's it.
All righty, thanks. If any city staff have any additional comments you want to share with us?
Well, I was just going to mention at the capital project meeting there, at the next meeting, I think we were going to talk about prioritizing for the committee and what the committee recommends for the top projects. So it might help if everybody kind of comes with your top 3 or 4 projects from that meeting to kind of facilitate this meeting, to kind of see what kind of consensus there is and who can which projects we want to recommend for, as a committee, what you want to recommend. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you can prioritize before the meeting, it might help facilitate things to get a consensus. We've definitely got a lot of requests on there, so you'll see a lot of things from Public Works.
That sounds good. Yeah, thank you for that advice. All righty. Well, we've come to the end of the agenda, the end of everybody's choice. So I think that we'll call an adjournment. Thanks everybody for your time tonight, and appreciate it. And yeah, we got something done. Member Lewis? Feels good to make progress. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone.